what we're going to do this evening for just a little bit is we've got some state organizers who, as they come up to for the panel, please don't leave me hanging, guys. Lloyd, Tanya, Robert, and Mary Sue. Is Kim here? Kim? They're going to share some insight from their experience doing some organizing in their state. My husband's giving me instructions. Is this on? It was. I didn't do it. So let me tell you a couple things from my perspective before we begin. Paul said he had good news and bad news. I don't know about you, but I really thought he was more full of bad news than he was good news. But that's okay. I really do believe, I believe what he said. But let me give you some good news. My husband and I, after a traumatic experience of losing our home we had lived in for 10 years, paid for ourselves, I'll have you know. The state did not do anything for us to get that home. When we moved there, can you tell I'm mad? When we moved there, it was perfectly lawful. 10 years later, they passed unconstitutional residency restrictions in Kentucky. We were forced to move. So at that point, we had been on the registry, had been on the registry for about 15 years, and I thought, you know what, this is stupid. I've spent 15 years sliding a piece of paper to my husband so he could fill it out anonymously and we wouldn't talk about it. 15 years. And what I ended up doing was losing my home over it. And I decided that I was done. Okay? And I know there are a lot of people in this room the same way. I tell you that because that spurred us to do some research. I found RSOL, and they were having a conference, and that was in Boston. How many people were in Boston in this room? There are a few of us. Okay. For those of you, and there may have been a few of you who were simultaneously in Texas. Mary Sue probably was there. There were a few of us there, and one of the things that Barbara and I were discussing earlier was that when we showed up there, it was almost a clandestine affair. Some people were afraid to even write their name down. Some people chose not to wear a name tag because there was fear. There was a great amount of fear in the room. There was fear even that some vigilante group would show up and protest. The conference wasn't even announced on the website. I had to call and actually get the information. And there was a process we went through to make sure I was not, a vigilante that was going to mess things up. And I have to tell you, it's a significant difference from that experience 2 years ago to tonight. You notice everybody had a name tag laying out on the table, and your name was on it. So we have gone, I think that's a long way in a very short period of time that we have 120 people who are willing to put their name out there and say, this is enough, like me. Now I have to tell you, I can't stand up here and tell you that I'm not fearful sometimes, because I am. I worry about that. I have 2 children. One of them is a 10-year-old boy, almost 10 years old. And I think about him, and Paul's comments are right on target. My fear becomes greater that I will have gone from having a husband and dealing with the registry in that way to having a son who ends up in jail on the registry for what is really normal teenage behavior. I am more fearful about that. So without further ado, I instructed my panel members not to give a long presentation. We've all got a story. Ooh.
Whoa, hello.
I think we've all got I think there's a little short in here. We've all got a story. That's why you're here. And we could take a lot of time sharing those stories. And hopefully over the weekend, you will be able to do that. It's cathartic in a lot of ways to be able to do that. But that's a little bit about my story. And I hope that all of you who are here will get to the same place, that your fear is greater, that things won't change. And I didn't even introduce myself. Tell what? Oh, well, he wants me to tell. This is my husband right here. The other thing that came out of us losing our home, when I decided it was enough, we did some more investigating and come to find out he could have petitioned 15 years prior to be removed from the registry. So we did that, and he lost. So he's really the only person I know who's ever been removed from the registry.
One down, 699,000 to go.
And it happened on his birthday last year, June 10th. So we couldn't have had a better birthday present. So, which then adds a whole nother layer of fear, because I could just sit down and say, well, our problem's solved to some extent. But we really can't do that for the reasons I just mentioned. So anyway, I want us to be able to get to the real meat of why we are here. Our panel discussion tonight, I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you. They are folks who are working in their states very diligently, as some of you are, to make change. I'm going to let them introduce themselves very shortly. And this is also going to have some audience participation. So we're going to get started with them introducing themselves. I'm going to facilitate some questions. We're going to have a conversation. We don't want to talk at you, we want to talk to you. We're going to facilitate a conversation. I do have some cards that we're going to distribute. So along the way, if you have a question, if my husband will, he'll find them in a minute. Barbara, who is in the back of the room, and my husband Dan are going to have the cards. And if you want to write a question down, that way it'll go a little more smoothly for us to be able to get your questions answered. And again, the more you ask questions and come up with things that you'd like to know, the more meaningful this is going to be. So I'm going to turn this over now to our panel members. And let me ask a question. If I take this off and kind of walk around with it, will it be any problem? Then I'm probably better off just leave the way. Okay. I'm going to let the panel members introduce themselves and tell a little bit about why. I gave you a little information about my story. I'm going to let them do the same thing. And then we're going to get going with some just basic information. Okay.
Whoa. I don't know if I'm talking loud. I have a cold. I cannot hear, so if I'm okay. Is that all right? Okay. My name is Tanya Maloney. I'm from Illinois. I started a little sub-chapter from the RSOL called Illinois Voices for lobbying purposes. My son, when he was 19, was arrested for having sex with his 16-year-old girlfriend. He did go to jail, and by the time this went to court, she was then 18, he was 21. It still didn't matter. They were still together 3 years. He wound up going onto the registry. He was told, even though she was 18, that she was a victim and they could not see each other, and they did it anyway. Therefore, prison, which led to sex offender treatment, GPS monitoring, 10 years on the registry, which you would think 10 years isn't really so bad, but in Illinois, they have a little hidden law, not in the registration law, it's in the criminal code. Nobody knows about it, but the residency restrictions, not going to parks, schools, daycares, they never end. Of course, it's unconstitutional. We're working towards our options of fighting that, as well as many other options. There are legal issues. I'm not going to go into that now, but check my website in about 2 months. You guys will be amazed. Other than that, we're just growing. We're trying. We're lobbying. We've killed a ton of bills. A few of them got passed. We stopped the Adam Walsh Act for now, so it's not easy, but get some people that are willing to help. Got a few of my Illinois folks here. A great job. So that's about it.
Thank you, Tanya.
Okay.
Robert?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What's so funny? My name is Robert Combs with Arkansas Time After Time. and got involved in this organization from personal experience. I used to be a museum director working for the Department of Defense in the Republic of Korea, and I taught undergraduate history at different colleges. And then in 2003, I ran afoul of the law. I was looking at pictures online that I shouldn't have looked at, inappropriate pictures. I spent 5 years in federal prison. When I was released in 2008, I was released in Little Rock, Arkansas, a place that I had never been before. And I found myself under the Broadway Bridge, sleeping on cardboard, begging to be taken back to prison, scared to death. But the people of Arkansas had such compassion. I found myself with an angel who was my probation officer of all people. And I had found my way to a homeless shelter, and then I found a job as a dishwasher and began to rebuild my life, rebuild my commitment to society. And when I got off probation after 2 years, I got in touch with RSOL, got in touch with Cure Sort and with SOSN, and founded Arkansas Time After Time and began lobbying, going to Congress, and people began joining me. And we didn't miss a House or Senate Judiciary Committee hearing this spring. We lost more bills than we defeated, but we helped kill some bad ones. And I'm just really lucky to be here. Talk about success stories. You know, the success stories are out there. You tend to make your own success, but it's tough. And if we can help other people become successful, that's our goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mary Sue?
I'm Mary Sue Molnar from Texas Voices.
Ooh, go Mary.
I am one of the few people that you will find my name if you Google it. I'm all over the place in the media. I could care less. There's not much more that they can do to my family or the families that I've grown to love. So my name can be out. I began because I have a son caught up in this mess, and little by little started gathering more people who are required to register, more family members, and before very long, it just wasn't about my son anymore. So this is I'm very proud of what I do. We still have the people in Texas as well that are very quiet and they want to fly under the wire, and that's okay. Maybe it's not the time for them to come forward, but for me and a lot of our other members, it's past time. So anyway, we have a ton of members, because in Texas there are over 65,000 people on the public registry, and 100 names are added every week. So the people who say, gosh, how do you gather so many people? It's not hard with that many on the registry. So anyway, thank you guys.
Thank you, Mary Sue. Lloyd?
Well, thankfully, we only have 3,000 in New Mexico. But my name's Lloyd Swartz, and I'm president of RSOL New Mexico. And we've been around 3 years now, and during our tenure, not one single offensive bill is passed against sex offenders.
Can you move to Illinois?
And in the last session, we introduced 4 of our own bills. And we had one that made it all the way through and got vetoed by our great governor. So, something strikes me that was said about being anonymous and getting involved. And one thing I want to say is most of you that have family members or are on the registry yourself, you're there, you're on the internet, you can be found. Being anonymous is not going to save you, and the more that people that learn that, the better able this movement will be to move forward.
Great, thank you. Mary Sue, I'll direct this question to you. As a state organizer, for anybody who's out there trying to do this kind of work, when you said, I'm going to do something, what was the first step you took?
Actually, the first thing I did, because I started researching, like most people get on the internet and they start researching because it's so unbelievable. And I found RSOL. So I emailed and I asked, hey, you guys have anybody on Texas? that have signed your registry from Texas? Because I'm thinking about starting a group here, and the answer was, yes, we do, but it's confidential. So we can't give you their names and email addresses, but we can give out yours. And I said, give it out, send it out. And that's actually how we started. The first email I received was actually from the lawyer, Bill Hayburn. And he had signed the national, and he said, Miss Molnar, I don't think you're going to have much luck. So I emailed every week, hey, Bill, got 2 more people. Bill, 3 more. Bill, 4 more. And then he's like, damn. So that's how I started, just reaching out and trying to find that first group to start with.
How many members or how many do you have members in your organization?
If they're on our confidential email list, they're considered a member, because those are people that I have spoken with, or we verified, we know that they are with us or on our side. So if they're in our confidential email list, they're considered a member. We have 400 on the confidential email list, but that doesn't include all of the people who are not allowed to use the internet. So, and some of the lawyers we have on the email list as well.
Now, Robert, earlier you and I were having a discussion about in Arkansas, you don't have a public registry. Is that what you told me? And so finding folks, explain that to me, and then how you've gone about, some of us have an advantage. In Kentucky, I got on the internet and I just cut and pasted address, because they're there. We're not anonymous. But Robert, you said your situation was a little different in Arkansas.
We do have a public registry, publicly accessible registry in Arkansas. And if you're a level, we have 4 levels in Arkansas, not 3. There's level 1, which is a low risk of reoffense, level 2, a moderate risk of reoffense, level 3, which is the natural state default, which is a high risk of reoffense, and level 4 is a sexually violent predator. If you're a 3 or a 4, you're on the publicly accessible register. Now, if you're a 2.5, you're on the register. They're slowly moving it down. So your image and your crime and all that's on the register. The only thing that's not on the register is a mailing address. It'll say 200 block of South Main Street. It won't give the mailing address. So it's a blessing. But at the same time, it's hard for us to organize to find the addresses to get out. There are 10,700 men and women on the registry and children on the registry in Arkansas. And the way we can reach them is by reaching probation and parole officers, by reaching mental health professionals, by reaching people who deal with the county sheriffs and the city policemen who deal with maintaining the registry. That's the best way that we can reach people.
So you're building a coalition with folks who work in law enforcement or probation and parole, and how has your reception been from those folks?
Very, very strong, very good. Well, our number 1 advocacy group is the parents and family members of people on the registry. Number 2 would be people on the registry themselves. Then the mental health professionals, people with ATSA, and other mental health professionals. And then finally law enforcement, by developing strong relationships with Arkansas Department of Community Corrections and Arkansas Department of Corrections. We've really expanded our reach.
Lloyd, what about New Mexico? Tell us a little bit more about your organization, its structure, how you've gotten people involved.
Well, we have about 140 members, and of course we have, again, only 3,000 people on the registry. Our mailing list contains judges, lawyers, registrants, families, and those that are in charge of victims' rights groups are also on our mailing list, because I believe in a little more of a system of being open and not making people wonder what you're up to. I even sit on a judiciary committee where all the victims groups also participate. So we tend to be very outgoing. I mean, we don't miss a sex offender management board meeting. We obviously don't miss a legislature meeting. We don't miss a meeting for a county ordinance, a city ordinance, anything like that. We go to everything. We make sure, and obviously we're not all available to go all the time, but we make sure somebody's there. It makes a huge difference. Not just in stopping bad things from happening and educating, but networking as well. We have meetings right now about every other month. I think those are important to bring people together, unite. We also do some social activities periodically and that sort of thing. Our registry, fortunately, does have addresses posted, so we generally send out about 300 letters every quarter mailed out to the registrants, inviting them to become involved. One of the major pushes now is the recognition that even though there's very few people that want to become involved, we have a core group, just as most organizations do, that money is the big downfall. So one of the things we're working on heavily now is money. We've got a lawyer paying for an ad on our website. We do fundraising events every month almost, and we're going to begin asking members to do regular contributions.
Great. Tanya, give us a little information about what you did, First Steps.
First steps, went to the registry. We were able to download it, put it into an Excel, print labels right off, and we just sent out letters. We let people know that they weren't alone. We were trying to get them to come forward and help. Illinois has about 25,000 people. Is that me or you?
No, I think, is there an off switch on this thing? Is there an off switch here?
Too close.
You should just stand right here in front. No. Anyway, letters were definitely the way that we started. We'd get a hold of a couple reporters, and they do an article about it. We'd get some leads from there. And we also go out to different various groups, too. We've actually sent out questionnaires to every single treatment provider in Illinois. Wow. The outcome wasn't real big because none of them wanted to respond. They do not even believe in a lot of the laws themselves. So they wouldn't come out and just outright say it. We had to do it anonymously. But we also we're getting some connections as well. It's amazing the people that are out there that want help. They want answers. They have questions to ask. We don't have all the answers. We're learning. We've been around about 3 years. But the more that come forward, the better shot we have of working at this. We've also attended SOMB meetings, quite a few. One guy almost got kicked out because they found out he was on the registry. We've been to lobbying. One guy got kicked out of the Capitol, out of the guy's office because he was on the registry. So it's not easy. It's extremely hard. Confidentialness is important. But we've got over 200 people so far. So we are growing and we're getting there.
Tell me how you overcome geography as a barrier. One of the things I know we've faced in Kentucky in really getting people to get on board, we're a very rural state and very spread out. Tell me how some of the strategies you may use to engage people who are, all across the state. Lloyd, you want to?
Well, first of all, let's be brutally honest. If you're an organizer, you probably need to live near the Capitol. I'm just going to be brutally honest about that.
Or have somebody really good that
right,
lives
or
there.
have somebody very good at lobbying. And I don't just mean, somebody can speak, a talking head, but somebody can think strategy, that can make decisions, be authorized to do things, and can be there on a regular basis. That's obviously really very critical. Unfortunately, in our state, our population center is really in one area, and so it's very hard to network in those outlying people, but we do find uses for them. I mean, our website host is as far as 6 hours away, and so, we try to find some place that people can contribute. Plus, they can also act as watches for the little individual counties, cities, because a lot of times these damn ordinances like residency restrictions and stuff and banishment things come up, and they're not publicized because they're just a little city or a little township or something like that. So getting those people out there to be your eyes and ears is helpful as well. And they can also donate money. If they can't make it to the Capitol, they can donate money.
Mary Sue, you want
to? We actually have meetings, Texas Voices meetings in Dallas, Houston, and Austin. all throughout the year. We'll go to Dallas, and a couple of months later, we go to Houston, and then we go to Austin. So we get around, and that way people who live closer to that area can choose one. It won't be long, we're going to have to spread out. So for me and some of the board members, it's a little more difficult because we travel quite a bit. What we do in our group that works real well is we have a Yahoo group, very similar to the state organizers group. But that group is not set up as a chat room, because with 400 people in it, if everyone starts chatting, it'll be flooded with emails. So we have a forum for that, for our members to go to if they just want to chat and connect. The Texas Voices email group is set up only for me to send out updates to the entire group all the time. And that's how they know about our meetings, that's how they know about what's going on, reminders of what they can do. Don't forget to send a letter, don't forget to call your legislator's office, this bill, that bill, just constant information. During the session, maybe 2 or 3 action alert emails a day. Not during the session, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 a week, depending on what's new. That's how we connect.
Tanya, what about you guys?
Well, actually, we have, this is part of our problem. Me and Renata and a couple other, and we don't call them members, we call them supporters. It's just people supporting what we're working on. But we have a few that are down south, which is right across the river here. The majority are up near Chicago or even beyond. So whenever we can, we get a group from down here to go up to Chicago. But again, the traveling, especially when you work full time, it's hard to get away and do this. We need, and one of our focuses are to get leaders, strong people in various different portions of Illinois so we can do this. And I like your forum, your Yahoo idea, because I don't let anybody mess with my website, sorry, but I'm afraid somebody's gonna put something on there, or say something and can't back it up. But on the other side of that, it is important that people connect and they have someone they can talk to. And rather, I have to admit, I get overwhelmed with the emails and I try to put them with this person or that person. And we were just talking about a better way to do this, and I want to talk to her about this even more. It's difficult though, and the majority of the 200 and some odd people, they don't have the money, or they don't have jobs, or they don't have vehicles, or they can't travel. So that's one of our difficulties. Yeah.
Mary Sue, you mentioned, when you were mentioning going to the various places where you have meetings, a board, which I then interpret to mean you have some kind of structure that you have set up with your organization, whether it's nonprofit. Describe how
Yes,
your organization is set up.
We are now a 501c4 organization. And we're a 501c4 because we are not limited on the lobbying we can do. And this is just our preference. Everybody needs to research for themselves and decide what would work best for their organization. But when we looked at the 501c3, there were so many limitations on only 20% of your funds can go to this and only 20%, and we didn't want the limitations. The only drawback with a 501c4 is if someone donates money to us, it is not tax deductible for the donator. So, honestly, I've had a few people say, gosh, I'd donate $1,000 or $2,000, but it's not tax deductible. Don't believe it. If they're going to donate, they're going to donate,
Right.
Whether it's tax deductible or not. So we went with, for our organization, we felt that the 501c4 was the best. And to do that, you have to put together a board, which we desperately needed, and that's exactly what we did.
What about you other guys? Anybody else set up in some kind of legal structure? Robert?
Well, we are set up very loosely. We have a steering committee, and in the steering committee, we have a director of research, a director of membership, and then we have 3 of the other directors here today. We have Lynn Gilmore. Lynn, could you stand up? Maybe not. Okay, yeah, okay. In addition to being our director of lobbying, she's also the author of the book Consensual Consequences and the CEO for SOSA. So we're very lucky.
She rocks.
Yeah. Also, Carla, our correspondence director. Has had great luck with correspondence for us, and then Christine for communications directors, doing some great things in terms of marketing communication. So we have a group of 5 in the steering committee. Then we also have a radio station broadcast committee and a newsletter committee that we're working on. So we're trying to keep things together, but still a little bit loose.
What I'm kind of figuring out, and you all probably shake your head, is that one of the things that seems to be important in getting people engaged and involved is giving them jobs to do, specific jobs, which it sounds like what you've done. What are some other ways that maybe you have used to get people engaged and involved, whether it's things that are informal or formal? Tanya, you have anything?
Yeah, actually, we started off sending out emails. When you tell people of your accomplishments, it lets them kind of want to get involved. So then we even went further than that with the newsletter. When we put in all the bills that we were able to kill and how easy, or not easy, trust me, bad word, but how much it took and how little effort from more it would have maybe even accomplished a little bit more. I think that gives people something to look at. They see this, they see what we're doing, they want to help a little bit. And we just recently had one of our supporters send a letter. Some city was trying to increase their residency to 1,000, 2,000 feet. One letter led to 4 articles. It led to the council meeting looking to us for research, and they killed it. And we are going to use that as an example for other cities. So there is hope. You just got to let people know. If you accomplish something, say it, yell it. I mean, because we all know if we can kill even one bill, you're just like, yes. So do that, and then maybe more people go, well, she can do it. I mean, she's just some short little girl from Illinois, I could do this too, so.
I'd like to add one thing,
Yeah, go ahead.
just to tack on to what she said. Personally, I try not to send out all the bad news.
Right.
Because people have enough devastation in their lives, and we don't need to slam them with, oh my God, look what happened here, oh my God. I try to send out the positive news, the good news, because we are making progress. And that's what we need to focus on and keep moving forward.
And it's a lot of progress
It is.
compared to 3 years ago. I mean,
Yes.
people don't even realize that, and that's
A
why we
lot.
always try to show it. Show what we've done, show where we've gone, show what we've stopped. We don't put too much emphasis on the one bill that got through, even though it sucks. But we just want to kill them, We are making a lot of progress.
Because if you send out too much bad news and you focus too much on the bad, you're overwhelming people, and they have more of a tendency to pull back and not want to deal with it.
And some want to just give up anyway.
Right.
So they're hanging on by a thread.
They're hanging on
Gotta
by
get
a
'em
thread,
in.
some of them, that's right.
There is a lot of progress done because you were the one I emailed like 8 years ago, 9 years ago when I started to find it through the television show 2020. That's
Right.
and it's a lot of progress since.
Lots of progress.
Sometimes it's hard to see that progress, and I've had some issues with folks lately that weren't, in my organization, they weren't happy with the progress. But, I look just back to New Mexico RSOL. We were pretty successful legislatively, but, 3.5 years ago, myself and current Vice President Alice Benson there were wandering the halls of our Capitol like deer in the headlights. Now we control the legislative agenda completely in our state. So, and every enemy's been discredited. So, things do change. I mean, it may seem like things are happening slow, but slowly and slower than we like, but they really are.
I'm going to go to some questions here we've had from the group. Each of you just remind us how many supporters you have. I know you've probably got a list of supporters or members, and then out of that group, how many do you consider being active?
Active. I knew this question was going to come. I would say, actually, I have 8 more people to add to that list. So it was 218, so I add 8 to that. That's where we are currently. If I had to say how many were active, 20. So it could be worse. I mean, it was 2, a couple of years ago. So
Right. Right.
Not too many.
Robert, what about you?
We have about 90 people on our mailing list that have asked to be on the mailing list that we've confirmed are interested. And out of that, about a dozen are active in a regular way.
Mary Sue?
You know, I think that's hard to determine because what do you call active?
Yeah.
You know, I've got one member that I don't hear from all year long. Never a word. I don't think the guy writes a letter, but he sends a very hefty check at the end of every year. So I think he's real
I would
active.
consider him active.
Yeah, he's in the active pile, for sure.
Yeah, I'd put him in the active pile.
Yeah, it's hard because some people, everybody's good at something, and some people are just write a few letters, and other people make calls, and
Well, see, I included all of those, and we're at 20, so.
yeah, I
That's
gosh,
okay.
I have no
I like the
idea.
answer, because
Yeah.
I would consider him active, too. We'd all like to have him,
yeah.
or someone like that. Lloyd?
Well, yeah, I kind of would think the same way, you know, I don't, if people are willing to give money, then I honestly don't care if they give their time. I'd love them to give both, but if I'll take one or the other. And so we have 140 approximately on our mailing list right now, and probably 20 to 30 of them are active at some point. But, you know, honestly, we have a core group of 6 or 8 that do most of the work. And I don't think it's reasonable to expect that you're going to have a whole lot more than 6 or 8 or 10 doing the bulk of the work. But, you know, if those others can be there for committee meetings, can donate some money, maybe support you in a fundraiser, whatever it is you're doing, and that's their contribution, then that's what you need.
I want to just bring up one thing that I thought was really interesting. When we talk about active members, there's a way to get them active. There's a lot of ways, a lot of very small things they can do to get them motivated. One of our legislators sponsored a really good bill. I'm not going to say what it is because we managed to keep it out of the media. It didn't go anywhere, but it will next session. However, I sent out an email and I said, you know, this guy really went out on a limb. So everybody on this list, please send a thank you note.
Right.
And I provided his address and his name and just a few little sample paragraphs. And the following week when I went to that office, there were thank you notes stacked up everywhere. And the staff was really like, wow, this is really nice of y'all. And I thought, wow, yeah, I wondered how many
Thinking,
people
wow,
are
they
actually
really
going to
did
do
it.
it. But for some people that really don't know what to do, that was the perfect thing.
Right.
So
A very good
even the
idea.
little things, you know, little things.
Great, thank you. That's very good. Somebody asked, Robert, you mentioned something about radio station. Do you all do some work with the radio station, and is it effective? Do you pay for that?
Well, we're working with KBF Radio, 88.3 FM, and we're putting together a weekly radio show called It Could Be You. And it's an hour format. The first half hour is interview with a guest, and the second half hour is call-in. We've had our first interview this last week, and we'll start. The weekly show will begin in October. And so we're really just on the groundwork. It's a donated program. The radio station is providing us free airtime. And so we're hoping that it works very well. We've had some good input so far, and I'm anxious to see it go.
Well, it can be that way. And I think I've heard from different organizers that have different experiences. You know, our probation and parole department locally won't talk to us at all. There's very little we can do with them, but yet we've seen in some of the more rural communities throughout our state that the probation and parole departments were very reasonable and very communicative. So you got nothing to lose by reaching out to them, I think. And, you know, one of the tough things is that I find, just a real quick story, I encountered the person that put me on the registry. This was the person that at the time, you know, our politician, who was a mayor actually, was out trying to get votes. Basically had this person on the police force sit down and go through all the court records, all the probation parole records, to find all the people that should have been retroactively added a few years prior when they changed the law to get them on. And she didn't know who I was or anything, and bumped into her in line, and we started talking. I don't know how we even got on it, but she hates this stuff now. And you hear a lot of judges and law enforcement, different folks, even politicians, that after they're out of office, they go, God, I hate this stuff. And this stuff was horrible. And unfortunately, we need more people that are in office to stand up.
Right.
And so I think if you reach out, even if you only get the ear, of one or two, and if it makes a difference, it's worth it. And you just have to accept that you're not going to convince everyone. You're always going to have the demagogue. You're always going to have the probation officer that thinks he's doing God's work. You're always going to think that, you're always going to, whatever. The politician wants to get reelected, whatever. But you try to convince as many as you can.
And if I could just briefly on that, also like I mentioned with the counselors, the treatment providers, some of them won't say anything because of fear of losing their job. And without mentioning a name, we have someone that runs the Illinois State Registry, and we communicate often. She's great for giving answers. She will sit next to me and argue with me in the Capitol, totally disputing what I have to say. But if I ask a question aside from that, she'll say, I can't email you that, call me. And those phone conversations are extremely different than the person that you know, but she doesn't want to lose her job. And a lot of treatment providers are the same way, and I imagine a lot of the politicians, when we go from room to room at the Capitol, I understand what you mean, then help us. I can't. You should talk to this one. We go there, I can't. So they're just afraid. People are afraid.
Yeah. I think there was another. Bob, just real quickly, back to the radio show. Someone asked, what are the call letters for the radio station, and is it available online?
It'll be streaming online. It's kabf.us for the streaming audio.
I don't think it's US. I don't think the US is working.
It's KABF.
I was there this afternoon. Was it?
Yeah. The kabf.org is the station insignia, but kabf.us is the streaming audio. It'll be every Wednesday from 12 to 1, starting in October.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. We'll make sure, Robert, I'll keep in touch with you and make sure that that gets posted to the state organizers list.
All right.
Yeah, so that everybody has that information, because I think we'd all like to hear some of that. Now, some of you have mentioned lawyers and judges, getting them involved in your projects in your state. Mary Sue shook her head, so I'm going to direct this to her. Someone asked, how do you get started getting lawyers and judges involved?
One of the things that we do, of course, we got Bill Hayburn from signing the RSOL. His firm has been wonderful. They really, really want to see change, and they're just thrilled to death. Incidentally, when we have our meetings in Dallas, Houston, and Austin, they come. Those lawyers come. They drive all the way from Houston. We have what we call an Ask the Experts segment, and they love answering the questions, legal questions. Another thing we do is we go and we give out flyers. I might go to a few criminal defense lawyers in my town. Can I leave these brochures here? So I leave brochures. Now what's happening are there a few of them calling saying, I noticed y'all have links on your website. And we're like, come to a meeting. Make a donation. Get involved. Get
Well, it could
involved.
potentially lead to them making money as well.
Absolutely,
So they have a lot to gain.
absolutely.
We sent out about 112 emails to different attorneys. Of course, we know they haven't gotten back
Criminal
to us yet,
defense
but
lawyers,
we're gonna change our
if they
email.
see that your group is growing and you have a large group, they have been really good to us.
Criminal
And in
defense
return,
lawyers.
I'm sure that we have sent some business their way. But they have been really good to us,
Lori,
really good to us.
Did you want to add something, Lori?
Yeah, let me add to that networking is the way you really get these folks on board. If you just contact a criminal defense lawyer and they don't know you from anything, they're not going to pay you the time of day. As an example, I know that Alice and Don, a couple of our members, go to an organization called Micah Fellowship, which is is a Christian group that supporting reform and people out of prison, and a lot of the judges go to that. It's just one of those types of things. So it's about networking as a big part of it, but you also have to keep I also want to put a cautionary word out there that you have to have realistic expectations and realize that attorneys have to make a living. They have to put food on the table. Seems like in this movement, we have a lot of people that just keep saying, pro bono, pro bono, pro bono. We want everybody to do everything for pro bono. It's just not realistic.
Not going to happen.
And, what you hope to do is bring these attorneys into your group, have them advise you, and hopefully with time, maybe you find some key cases that they are willing to either donate their time or significantly cut the rate down to save you money on an important case. But it should be a case that affects a large number of people. You can't shoot your wad on them, doing individual cases, that has to be paid for. They have to make a living. So I just want to put that cautionary word out there.
Another question about judges and lawyers. Someone wants to know if you can provide samples of do you have letters, communications that you have sent to folks like that, and would you share?
You don't want to use mine because we fail at that.
One good thing, I don't know how it is in other states, but in Texas, they have a Texas Criminal Defense Lawyers Association. And they have seminars all through the year. And about once a year, they have a seminar on sexual assault. So all the attorneys who are interested in learning how to better defend sexual assault cases will go to this seminar. And we go. It's great. We just go to their website. Their website.
They have those.
And most of the time, I think if you look up Criminal Defense Lawyers Association, it will probably bring up
And the name of your state.
Yeah, and you can click on your state.
Yeah, every state has it, but the key here is networking. Don't send them a letter. Don't send them an email. It's not going to get you. Not going to get you anywhere with a judge or an attorney. It's networking. They want. Part of the problem with this movement is too many people try to do things from behind a keyboard. It just doesn't work. You're not considered legitimate to many folks if they don't see your face, get to speak to you in person. So
be sure, if you go to the Criminal Defense Lawyers Association seminar, be sure and let them know who you are. We were invited to come up and tell everybody who we are. That was huge. And we had our brochures ready. We were there talking. It was great.
Robert, were you going to add something?
Just to piggyback on the networking idea, not just with criminal defense lawyers and judges, but also with mental health professionals. The Association for the Treatment of Sexual Abusers has a conference every year.
Yep.
And when I went to the state conference in Fayetteville last year, they were surprised to see someone on the registry show up at their conference. I was well received. I got to spread a little bit of the message, got to show the point of view of the family members and the people who are struggling. And that's something that a lot of those mental health professionals understand more than we think they do.
And you bring that up because once we started going places, like you were saying, not behind the keyboard, once we got out there and we got to the Capitol, not 1 week, not 2 weeks, but 3 weeks in a row, they started recognizing us. Once we went to the SOMB meetings, the second one, the third one, they knew who we were. Questions were geared to us. So it does take a little bit to get out there. You've got to find a good group that can help you with this, though, because it's not easy to do it on your own. So I agree, though, you've got to go.
There's another resource that's untapped, and that's people in prison. Get into the prisons and meet with the prisoners, with the sex offense treatment programs in prison, meet with the treatment providers, meet with I went and met with 500 men at the Ouachita State Prison, all in that RSVP program. And when I got back, I got 40 letters, and then I got letters from family members, and it just grew exponentially. And so that I didn't count that as part of our membership because these people I have to reach by mail, and they're very active though.
Well, the problem with that, when we found that was happening, everybody in prison, can you find me a place to live? Can you find me this? No, we can't. We could barely take care of our own, so I wouldn't have suggested that. I totally agree why you're doing it, but all I ever got from anybody in prison was want, need, and I can't. That's too much right now. Maybe we're not big enough, maybe if
We have an inmate mailing list.
Right.
We do too.
But we also put that out in our newsletter where we let them know we cannot.
Right.
What you can and what you have the capacity
We're not
to do.
attorneys.
Yeah,
We're not
and it's because of that
realtors.
we're working on a question and answer section on our website because you get this email, how do I get off of the registry, or where am I supposed to live, or do you know where I could go, or who's a good lawyer? Well, these these are overwhelming emails,
Yes.
questions. We've decided to take another route and lay it all out there. Here's the questions, here's the answers. If you need anything beyond this, email
Here's
me
someone.
here or shoot me an email and I'll put you on the email list for our newsletter as well.
And, and getting support from diverse people like lawyers, judges, treatment professionals, and also I add on the treatment professionals, a lot of times they have contracts with the state they're afraid of losing. But getting support from them is also about them knowing that you're going to be there to back them up if they speak up or if they do something. When they feel like they're the lone leaf blowing in the wind, they're probably not going to rock the boat. But if they know they have 140, 400 people, whoever, that are going to be there, they're going to be at a meeting, they're going to back them up in the media, whatever that is, then it gets to the point where they're more likely to help you.
And you're absolutely right, because the first time we filed our Romeo and Juliet bill, he was very skeptical, and he was a Republican. I couldn't believe that. But what helped us is that we took 6 guys into his office, and all of these guys looked like between 17 and 21. I mean, just young guys, and they just sat there, and all of this was filmed, and it will all be on MTV this wintertime sometime on True Life. So check that out. But we sat there, and I told them, tell them what it's like that you can't go play in a band anymore because it's geared to, 18 or under. Tell them that when you go to college that you can't actually access that part of it because there's a daycare next door. Tell them where you can and can't go, and they did. And they just opened up. So it was amazing. He wanted to help. He was kind of skeptical to help, but we gave him that voice to help with that. So I agree.
I think we've got time for just a couple more questions. We've mentioned, things that you get requests for, finding housing, jobs, and that we know that those are big issues. Do any of you have, with your organizations, a part of your organization that works on some of those kinds of issues, housing, employment, that kind of thing? Robert?
Well, yes. We don't provide housing, we don't provide jobs, we don't provide legal advice, but we do provide a resource directory of people who do. And in Little Rock, in the Pulaski County of Central Arkansas, there's lots of treatment providers, there's lots of homeless shelters, there's lots of organizations that provide these resources. So we've developed a 67-page resource directory that's designed with every food pantry, every clothing closet, every healthcare facility with free healthcare, all that. And it's published online. I print them up and I hand them out. I gave one, a fellow called me day before yesterday. I drove over to his house and gave him one about where he can get his teeth fixed. And so we do provide that. It doesn't really cost us anything just to do the research to find out who's providing it anyway. And so we just give them a resource directory.
Lloyd?
Well, our organization really doesn't do a whole lot on that in itself. And what I usually tell people is the best way I can help you find a job or a place to live is to change the law. And that really is the truth. It is practically impossible to find somebody a job, as an example. I mean, that's just the bottom line. But we do have a sister organization, Titus House, that works together with us and focuses on helping people find jobs and maybe a place to live for a short time when they get out of prison and that sort of thing. I think that's an important component of an organization if you can put it together. But honestly, to be kind of cold and cruel, it can't be your first priority. You have to focus on changing the laws first, because that's really how people are going to get jobs and find places to live, is by changing the laws first. But if you can expand or team up with a group as we have, that's certainly a great way to go as well.
Good. And someone else wants to know, and this is probably going to vary greatly, approximately how many hours per week do you devote to your organization? More than there exists in a week?
Just take away all free time, add in a job, and that's all it. It's all of it. A little bit of sleep here and there. Weekends shot, gone. Vacations, there are none. So 4 days actually. But yeah, it's all the time. It's constant. Otherwise, you fall behind. You're missing contacts. You're not getting people involved. We've backed up a few steps this summer to kind of regroup, get some committee ideas going. We need to break up. We need more groups. It's important. You can't kill everybody or they're going to wind up just burning out. So we've got to find and focus more on spreading it around so that not one person is doing this 10 hours a day, but 2 people could do it 3 to 4 or 5.
Robert, how about you?
Well, yeah, I was doing it hours and hours a day when I felt I was alone. And then slowly people began to gravitate, and the delegation to different missions has really taken off. During the legislative session, of course, you never miss a committee hearing, you never miss an opportunity to be there in the face of change. But after the legislative session's over, things have calmed down a bit, and we could pick up the mail, we write the letters, so hours every day. Yeah.
Mary Sue?
No. Hours and hours. Actually, we have a licensed treatment provider on our board and a counselor. He's here, Phil. And
Hey, Phil.
he's told me, you need to learn how to let go and
Right.
let some other people do. I just can't. I love it.
I can't do it either.
I'm real passionate about it, but we are starting to build committees. It is a lot of hours every day. However, I'm very fortunate. I'm not working right now. I should be working, but it's a choice. Do I want the new dining room table, or do I like what I do so much that I'm not going to get the table?
I'd give up a table
The
for
table
that, but I can't
loses.
give up the rent, so.
Exactly. Well, and see, I am fortunate. Right now, I don't have to work, so I can spend a lot more time than other people can. But we're going to start building committees and spreading the work out. But then again, I am real careful to take a little time for myself. Like this weekend, this is a me weekend. You guys think it's work? It's not for me. I'm enjoying seeing all of my friends, and to me, this is vacation.
So we go into the bar after?
There we go.
Lloyd, what about you?
Well, I typically would say probably 10 hours on an average week, but it just depends on what's going on. This week's obviously a lot more because I'm here. During the legislative session, I would figure on 70 to 80 hours potentially during the entire legislative session. That's time, and that varies by state. In my state, it's only in session 30 or 60 days, depending upon the year, thank God. I think it also probably depends on the size of your state. Mary Sue's running one of the largest registries in one of the largest states. Obviously, the demands on her are going to be significantly higher than me with one of the smallest registries. But it is a reality check, and I'm kind of fond of those for organizers. If you're going to commit to running a civil rights movement in your state, and you're leading an entire state, it's going to take some time. And in the beginning, if you don't have a lot of help, it's going to be even worse. Obviously, if you can get some more people and delegate, it'll get easier. But it's a part-time job at the very least, and a full-time job part of the year.
Thank you. I think they've done a terrific job. Now, if you look at your program, I know that some of you have other questions that probably didn't get answered. We just don't have time for everything. But if you look at the program tomorrow, what I tried to do was focus our conversation around topics that you will see on the agenda for tomorrow. So if you want to learn a little bit more about how you kill some bills, Lloyd's going to be on the schedule. If you want to know a little bit more about setting your organization up as a nonprofit, it's on the agenda. So there are a lot of things, communicating within your organization that we talked about this evening that you'll get to spend some more time learning about over the course of tomorrow and Sunday. So I have to tell you, I was a little nervous before we began this panel session because, and I don't know why, because I had all these questions in my head and I thought I'm going to be standing up here talking to myself. And I don't know why I thought that, because I knew that these folks would have to be very, very good at doing this. So I really appreciate it, and I know you do too. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for letting us.